Today, Borderlands 2 is teaching us far too much about international relations. This is CheckPoint. Welcome to CheckPoint. It was Tokyo Game Show last week. How did you enjoy it, the rest of the gaming press?
And more importantly, did you bring me back that green tea Coke I asked for?
The two founders of BYE-OWARE, who I'm going to call Ray and Greg so I don't have to mispronounce their last names, have announced their retirement from the company. Ray is moving on to mentor new entrepreneurs, while Greg is pursuing his second love and starting a web series revolving around craft beer, because screw you, he can do what he wants. We worry, though, that viewers of this series will complain that the beers he reviews do not have the aftertaste they were led to believe.
Sony is re-releasing the PS3. The PS3 Super Slim, as it's being called, is a smaller, lighter, and more expensive version of the PS3 we already own. The console isn't faster or dramatically improved, but it is 20% smaller and ribbed now, presumably for your pleasure, but I'm not really sure how or why that would work. Anyhow, if you listen carefully, you could actually hear a Microsoft senior vice president screaming at Sony for breaking their sacred one revision per life cycle covenant, calling for a vibrating 360 covered in tiny pleasure nubs to be in Walmarts in time for Black Friday.
Obsidian Entertainment has jumped in on Kickstarter with their already mega-funded pitch for Project Eternity, an isometric, party-based Baldur's Gate. It's basically a Baldur's Gate game. Unsurprisingly, and happily for me, it got funded nearly immediately, but it might not have been. Obsidian CEO Fergus Urquhart said in an interview recently that they were approached by a publisher who wanted to kickstart vicariously through them. The publisher wanted Obsidian to put up a Kickstarter, take the money, and then let the publisher do all of its normal publishy things like retain copyright on the intellectual property and keep most of the profits. So, good news, developers. Publishers haven't worked out how Kickstarter functions yet, so we're still safe.
The fan-made Just Cause 2 multiplayer mod went on full public beta recently, with the only server hitting its player cap of 1,800 people and not even flinching. That's pretty amazing. It's also pretty amazing considering the size of the game world. 1,800 is pretty close to what Panau's actual population would be if it were a real place and if its population was composed entirely of sociopaths with superpowers.
It didn't take long for Borderlands 2 players to discover an incredibly involved Minecraft Easter egg in the game, complete with pixelated blocks of cobble and gold, and the mob everyone loves to hate, the Creeper. In our eyes, it's worth the cost of Borderlands 2 just for the catharsis of finally being able to shoot a creeper in the goddamn face with a bazooka, presumably while screaming, "This is for my castle, you heartless green bastards!"
Speaking of Borderlands 2, are you Lithuanian or Estonian? Well, maybe don't buy the game on Steam, because if you do, you'll only be able to get a region-locked Russian language version that only lets you play with Ukrainians, Russians, and other members of the Commonwealth of Independent States. Why is that a problem? I'm glad you asked. It's time for a new segment on CheckPoint I'm calling Kathleen Justifies Her Political Science Degree. Turns out the Soviet Union, that's what Russia used to be called, didn't treat Lithuania or Estonia very well in the 20th century. It sort of forcibly annexed them and sent big portions of their populations to the gulag and the labor camps, that kind of thing. So understandably, many Lithuanian and Estonian gamers are kind of annoyed they can only play Borderlands 2 with Russians and other countries in the club for former members of the Soviet Union, instead of, say, the European Union, which both Estonia and Lithuania are members of. Also, these people don't speak Russian, so there's that.
That was very educational. I don't know that it was that funny.
Man, I spent like $35,000 on that degree, and this is the most use I've ever gotten out of it.
Okay, that is pretty funny.
No, it's not. Coming up, the Zone of Enders HD remake is coming bundled with a demo for Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. This explains what delayed the HD remake for so long. There's no Metal Gear demo to bundle.